They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis. But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stop looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side, and if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do, and no one's critically thinking about this.
Joe Rogan is the gateway drug for young men that thought they were Democrats to become MAGA. Joe Rogan is the bridge. And on that bridge, they'll see RFK. They'll see Elon Musk.
It all started with a lie on national television. Imagine being a teenager 16, maybe 17 years old, and you've traveled across the country to attend a conservative student summit. You're pumped, inspired, surrounded by thousands of others like you. Then, the next thing you know, The View throws you under the bus. Sunny Hostin, from her plush chair on daytime TV, implies that your event packed with high schoolers might be linked to neo-Nazi ideology. Just like that, your name, your face, your future is now tangled in something disgusting, all because someone on a morning talk show decided to be reckless.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world, Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
Charlie Kirk wasn't having it. This wasn't just another bad take to brush off. This was 5,000 students being smeared on live television. Their character, their families, their reputations attacked with zero evidence. And when Turning Point USA demanded an apology, The View didn't offer one out of guilt or honesty. It took the threat of a lawsuit. That's how far it had to go. Legal action, just to get someone to admit they were wrong. And you have to ask, what kind of show lets that happen? What kind of host throws accusations like that at teenagers? But
the final point I'll say is this, is Sunny, you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue. I'm pro-life. If people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more.
by the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now let's continue. Charlie wasn't just fighting for his name. He was fighting for every student in that crowd, making it clear the media doesn't get to smear innocent kids and walk away like nothing happened. And this was just the beginning. Sunny Hostin wasn't done. Right after the backlash, she sat comfortably on The View, still riding the high of applause and validation, and decided to double down. But this time, she didn't target students, she went after entire groups of voters, specifically white women who didn't go to college. She said it plain as day more than half of white women voted for Donald Trump, and she implied that it's because they're uneducated. That word uneducated dripped with arrogance. Like not having a college degree makes you dumb, like you're less than. She said it like a queen looking down from a throne at the peasants. But that wasn't all. She also pointed out how Latino and Black men were voting in higher numbers for Republican sauce, if that was some kind of betrayal. Like, she couldn't believe people who didn't fit her political mold could think for themselves. And here's the problem. She made it clear that if you didn't go to college, your opinion doesn't really matter.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here.
Well, it is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a rabies-infested hen house.
But think about who runs this country, who keeps it moving: truck drivers, electricians, small business owners, nurses, farmers, and factory workers. Millions of people who built lives, families, and success without a degree. And yet, Sunny Hostin sat on that couch and called them uneducated like they were beneath her. It wasn't just tone deaf. It was disgusting. It revealed a deeper problema class of media elites who think wisdom only comes with a diploma.
And the nerve of this woman, to whom the country has given so much, to try to dump on people who didn't go to college. Look at you, look at your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sunny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine, I guess.
And Charlie Kirk, he was ready to hit that nerve with precision. Charlie Kirk didn't waste a second. When Sunny Hostin opened that door with her elitist rant, he kicked it wide open and walked right through with receipts. He came armed with real data numbers that shattered her comfortable narrative. Minority voters, especially Latino and Black men, were shifting toward conservatism. Why? Because they're tired of being talked down to, tired of being told what to think by people who live in Manhattan penthouses and sip overpriced almond milk lattes while pretending to understand struggle. Charlie pointed out the hypocrisy loud and clear. You've got millionaire TV hosts making millions of dollars a year, telling working-class Americans what oppression looks like. It's laughable. These are people who get driven to studios, have producers feeding them lines, and still feel qualified to lecture the rest of the country on real life.
The episode of you when you're on The View, when you were running for president, you got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
But does he really want to add President of the United States to his resume? A lot of people would like him to. Please let's find out, and please welcome my friend, Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. And then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
That red hat that says "Make America Great Again." Might as well just put a sticker on the hat.
And when Charlie Kirk spoke, he didn't need to yell. He didn't need to insult. He used simple, sharp truth. He painted the picture perfectly. TV elites sitting in luxury, looking down on people who actually work with their hands, pay their taxes, and raise their families without needing media approval. It wasn't just about Sunny anymore, it was about what she represented. She wasn't just a host. She was the symbol of a broken media bubble, one that praises itself while mocking the people it claims to speak for. And Kirk? He was holding up a mirror. A brutal, honest mirror. And the reflection wasn't pretty. Then came the real punch. Charlie Kirk didn't stop at exposing the arrogance. He went straight for the core of the media's delusion. He tore into the idea that people like Sunny Hostin have moral authority just because they sit on a studio set and read off a teleprompter. He explained how the elite media class people, like Sunny, mistake their fame and fortune for wisdom. Like being on TV every morning somehow makes you smarter than everyone else. And let's talk about The View. A show that pretends to speak for everyday women, but let's be honest, how many people watching from a small town actually feel represented by a group of hosts who've never had to budget for groceries or fix a broken sink? Charlie exposed it all. The fake outrage, the smug lectures, the million-dollar salaries wrapped in fake humility.
Talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this, and as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it, but we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Yeah.
He mocked the very foundation of their moral superiority. And he did it without even naming her. That's how clean the strike was. He asked the question no one else dared. How does someone who's been given so much by this country still have the nerve to dump on people who didn't go to college? People who've built their lives through grit, hustle, and common sense? It was brutal because it was true. Charlie didn't attack her as a person, he attacked the system she stands on. A system that rewards condescension and labels it compassion. A system that needed a wake-up call. And Charlie rang the bell. But Charlie wasn't finished. He saved one of his hardest hits for last, something that completely flipped the conversation. While the media was obsessed with abortion being the only issue that mattered in politics, Charlie turned that on its head. He said, sure, abortion is emotional and personal, but it's not the only thing that drives voters. And the proof? Americans started caring more about the economy, education, border control, and the rising cost of living. You know, actual issues that affect everyday life.
I get it. I also hate Joy Behar. So I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird. So I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show, the CIA is engineering, Antifa and fucking the Capitol riot. Some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of, like, there are so many brilliant women out there. None of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set of The View.
He pointed out how the media, especially shows like The View, tried to force a black and white debate. If you're not pro-choice, you're the villain. But that didn't work. Voters didn't take the bait. They didn't let one issue control their vote. They looked at the bigger picture, and that terrified people like Sunny Hostin. Because if Americans stopped buying into the emotional manipulation, the media would lose its grip. And that's exactly what was happening. Charlie called it out. The media didn't want to report the truth about that student summit because it didn't fit their narrative. They didn't want to admit that 5,000 young people had traveled across the country on their own dime listen to conservative speakers during the most expensive summer in years. That kind of dedication challenges the stereotype they push every day. And instead of respecting that, The View tried to smear it. Why? Because if their audience heard the truth, they might start thinking differently. And that's the one thing media elites like Sunny can't risk.
You get people thinking, like, if you could stop Hitler by any means necessary, wouldn't you stop Hitler? And so they equate Donald Trump with Hitler and go, here you go, this is our modern Hitler. Do you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it, because it's so
on TV.
crazy.
She said it's
on television.
Now, while Charlie Kirk was slicing through elitist narratives with logic and data, someone else was getting ready to throw a completely different kind of punch. Not with spreadsheets or policy talk, but with raw, casual mockery. Enter Joe Rogan. He didn't need a studio set or a pre-written script. All he had was a mic, a podcast, and a brain that actually thinks. Joe didn't attack Sunny Hostin directly. He didn't have to. He went after the entire culture she belongs, to talk shows pretending to be journalism, while really being therapy sessions for rich people with delusions of relevance. Joe pointed to the hypocrisy with the kind of bluntness only he can get away with. He talked about how the same hosts who now act like Trump was the devil once hugged him on camera, laughed with him, praised him, until he became a serious political threat. That's when the media machine flipped. Suddenly, the man they once called friend became the next Hitler. And while Sunny and her co-hosts obsess over hashtags and identity politics, Joe's busy having real conversations with real people veterans, scientists, doctors, parents, people who don't need applause signs to validate their thoughts.
I mean, The View has to be, if you average out The View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth. But
I don't think some of them are dumb.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think Sunny Hostin.
You think it's deliberate?
I think she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on, for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a well thought out.
The contrast couldn't be clearer. One side recites carefully crafted moral sound bites for an audience that already agrees. The other side asks questions, challenges, assumptions, and isn't afraid to laugh at how ridiculous it's all become. Joe didn't need to drag Sunny by name. His ridicule was like a flamethrower in a room full of gas tanks. And Sunny? She happened to be standing right in the middle. Joe Rogan's takedown wasn't polished. It wasn't rehearsed. It was worse for people like Sunny Hostin. It was real. That's what made it sting. He exposed the fake seriousness of shows like The View. They dress it up with a nice set and designer outfits, but deep down, it's just an echo chamber. A place where hosts talk to themselves, clap for each other, and pretend they're changing the world. Joe compared it to group therapy for people who can't handle being wrong. He laughed at the way these shows spin everything into drama, like political theater with a makeup team. While Sunny talks about oppression from a Manhattan studio, Joe talks to people who've actually lived through hardship: soldiers, single parents, immigrants, business owners. People who don't have a publicist, but sure as hell have something to say. And then he dropped the most brutal comparison of asking how someone who lives in luxury can keep claiming they're the voice of the oppressed. Joe didn't yell, he didn't argue, he mocked. And when mockery hits harder than facts, you know something's broken. It wasn't about politics anymore, it was about credibility. And Sunny's was getting shredded not by her enemies, but by the obvious reality that millions of people are sick of being preached to by millionaire celebrities who act like they're still fighting the system. Joe wasn't debating, he was laughing. And the internet? It was laughing with him. While Joe Rogan laughed, the internet exploded. Clips of Charlie Kirk's calm dismantling and Joe's sarcastic roast flooded every platform: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. People weren't just watching, they were replaying, reacting, remixing. Suddenly, Sunny Hostin wasn't trending for something inspiring, she was trending because she had become the punchline in a viral political meme war. Debate teams started using Kirk's segment as a case study on how to destroy an argument without shouting. TikTokers reenacted Joe's rants like they were Shakespeare monologues in sweatpants. Reddit threads called it a cultural correction. Reaction videos had titles like "Sunny Hostin got cooked" or "When reality hits daytime TV." And that's the thing, this wasn't just about her. It was about what she represented. A kind of media arrogance that had finally met its match. Charlie brought the data, the charts, the cold logic. Joe brought the sarcasm, the side-eye, and the cultural gut punch. They didn't plan this, they didn't coordinate, but their timing? Perfect. Kirk hit first, exposing the detachment. Rogan hit second, mocking the absurdity. Together, without even stepping foot in the same room, they dismantled Sunny's entire on-air persona. She didn't respond. She couldn't. What was she going to say? That people misunderstood her? That the context was missing? The internet doesn't care. It saw through the glitter and the applause. And once people see the script, the illusion's over. Sunny didn't just lose the argument, she lost the room. What made this even more brutal was how clean the hits were. Charlie Kirk never shouted, never insulted her directly. He simply laid out the facts: the rising conservative support among minority voters, the elitist tone of media hosts, and the absurdity of millionaire pundits pretending to represent working-class struggles. He walked through her entire argument like it was a paper house and left it in ashes. Joe Rogan? Same thing. No shouting, no rage. Just casual takedowns, throwing side comments that landed like grenades. He didn't say Sunny Hostin's name, but everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. He didn't need to call her out. The culture she represents spoke louder than any name could. Joe mocked the self-importance, the fake victimhood, and the empty moral posturing that fills talk shows like The View. He questioned how a woman who makes millions, wears custom outfits, and has a full production team behind her could still pretend to be oppressed. And it hit. It really hit. Charlie went for the ideology, breaking it down piece by piece like a debate team captain who just discovered fire. Joe went for the vibe, pointing out how fake it all feels, how disconnected, how embarrassingly out of touch. And somehow, without saying a word to each other, they told the same story. Two totally different styles, same message. And that's why it worked. Because when logic and mockery line up perfectly, you're done. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse for Sunny, the internet did what it does best: it documented the downfall. Clips were saved, reposted, turned into side-by-side edits. On one side, Sunny Hostin talking down to voters. On the other, Charlie Kirk calmly dropping truth bombs. Then came the memes. The edits, the remixes. Her words played back in slow motion, over clown music, over sad piano music. It was digital carnage. And the worst part? The critiques weren't shallow. They didn't attack her looks or her voice. They hit the core of what she stands for. That smug, polished personath one, built on scripted outrage and empty slogans, got peeled back in real time. People started asking, why does someone like her get to speak for real women? For working moms? For middle-class families? The answer was clear: they don't. They just play that role on TV. The View, once a daytime talk show, now looked like a parody of itself. A group of overpaid hosts talking in circles, applauding each other for saying what their audience already believes. Meanwhile, outside that studio bubble, millions of people were laughing, shaking their heads, and sharing the clips that exposed everything. No one needed to cancel her. No one needed to yell. This was a quiet demolition. No flames. Just a total collapse of credibility delivered by two men who never even had to be in the same room to do it. It was ruthless. And it was beautiful. What made this entire collapse so poetic was how different Charlie Kirk and Joe Rogan are, and yet they landed on the same truth. Charlie showed up in his usual look. Clean suit, perfect haircut, like he just walked out of a policy seminar. His approach was methodical facts, stats, voter trends, economic arguments. No gimmicks, just sharp, focused breakdowns of how Sunny Hostin's media world doesn't match the real world. And then came Joe Rogan. No suit, no graphs, just a hoodie, a mic, and that casual confidence of a guy who's seen through the BS for years. He didn't dissect her point by point. He laughed at the whole setup, at how these polished talk shows sell themselves as truth tellers, when really, they're just soap operas in disguise. Together, they didn't just call Sunny out, they called out the system she thrives in, the glitter-covered echo chamber, the applause-hungry performance disguised as activism, the high-paid outrage passed off as journalism. And the result? Devastating. Because Charlie and Joe didn't need to scream or even mention her by name. They exposed something way bigger than one person. They exposed a culture. One where opinions are treated like facts, where dissent is treated like hate, and where being out of touch is somehow seen as being informed. It wasn't a takedown, it was a reckoning. Two voices from two totally different worlds, arriving at the same conclusion. Sunny Hostin isn't just out of touch, she's orbiting a different planet. And then came the moment that sealed it. Sunny Hostin didn't even fight back. She didn't respond. She just kept showing up on The View, acting like nothing happened. Same coffee cup, same applause sign, same smug tone. But something had changed. You could feel it. The internet had already decided. The damage was done, and the silence? That was the loudest part. Because when someone gets hit with facts and laughed at hand, has nothing to say back, that's not just losing an argument, that's getting exposed. The clips didn't fade, they kept resurfacing. Every time someone said, "But Sunny makes good points," the takedowns played again. Charlie Kirk's calm surgical takedown. Joe Rogan's mocking, "Are you serious?" Tone. Two different voices, one shared truth. The persona Sunny built on daytime TV couldn't survive real scrutiny. And people weren't just entertained, they were awake. Once you've seen behind the curtain, you can't unsee it. Once the script is exposed, the performance falls flat. Sunny's entire act depended on people believing she was the voice of reason, the voice of women, of the oppressed, of the everyday voter. But now, that voice sounded hollow, overproduced, forced. And everyone watching knew it. This wasn't a debate. This wasn't even drama. This was a total breakdown, quiet, invisible, and permanent. And it didn't need to be loud to hit hard. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.